Paul got a raise, 3%. That's $2,100 more a year. $175 a month? Real money. Paul should feel good about this. He worked hard. He earned it. His boss acknowledged his value. The number on his paycheck is higher than it was last year, higher than the year before that. Paul has been getting raises consistently. His income is growing, technically. But Paul doesn't feel richer. He feels the same, or worse. The money comes in, the money goes out, and somehow there's never more left over than there used to be. Paul looks at his paycheck, sees the bigger number, then looks at his bank account 2 weeks later and wonders where it went. Nothing changed, except everything did, and Paul can't figure out why the raise doesn't feel like a raise. Paul remembers what things used to cost. Not that long ago, 5 years, maybe 6. Rent was $1,200. Now it's $1,800. Groceries for a week were $80. Now they're $130. Gas was $2.50 a gallon. Now it's $3.80. Paul's brain is stuck on the old numbers. Every time he pays for something, he does the math. Not consciously, just automatically. This used to be cheaper. I used to get more for this. This didn't cost this much before. Every transaction is a reminder. A small, quiet reminder that things aren't what they were. Paul isn't comparing prices to last month. He's comparing them to a version of the world that doesn't exist anymore. And in that comparison, Paul is losing. Every time. His raise was 3%. His rent went up 8%. His groceries went up 15%. His car insurance went up 12%. Paul's income grew, but his expenses grew faster. And Paul feels the expenses, viscerally, immediately, every single time. But the raise? That disappeared before he noticed it. Paul earned his raise. He worked for it. Put in extra hours, took on more responsibility, proved his value. The 3% was recognition, validation, reward. But it doesn't feel like a reward. It feels like nothing. Because Paul didn't choose the raise amount. He doesn't control when it happens. He doesn't decide how much. He just gets what he gets. And it goes into the same account as always, mixed with everything else, invisible within days. But when rent goes up, Paul feels it. When groceries cost more, Paul notices. When his insurance renews higher, Paul sees the email and gets angry because he didn't earn that increase. He didn't agree to it. It was imposed, forced, taken from him. Same math, both 3%. But one feels like progress. The other feels like theft. Except the progress disappears into the baseline and the theft compounds. Over and over, month after month, until Paul's raise is gone, absorbed completely by things he has no control over. And Paul is left wondering why he's still broke, even though he makes more money than he did last year. Paul buys the same cereal he always buys. Same brand, same box, same shelf at the same store. $4.99. That feels high. But it's been $4.99 for a while now. So Paul stopped noticing. What Paul doesn't notice is the box. It's smaller, not dramatically, just slightly. Used to be 18 ounces. Now it's 15. Same price, less cereal. This is happening everywhere. The orange juice container, thinner. 64 ounces became 59 ounces, became 52 ounces. Same price point, same shelf space, less juice, the toilet paper, fewer sheets per roll, the chips, more air, less chips, the chocolate bar, thinner, the laundry detergent, fewer loads. Companies don't raise prices, not officially. They just give you less. Shrinkflation, quiet, invisible, unless you're paying attention. And Paul isn't paying attention. He's just buying what he always bought, paying what feels normal, and wondering why he's running out of things faster, why groceries don't last as long, why he's shopping more often, why the same amount of money buys less. It's not Paul's imagination, it's design, intentional, calculated. A price increase that doesn't announce itself, that doesn't trigger the sticker shock, that just quietly takes more and gives less over and over until Paul's grocery bill stays the same, but his card is lighter. Paul remembers when his phone bill was $45 a month, unlimited talk and text, simple, affordable. Now his phone bill is $85, Same carrier. Better plan, supposedly. More data. More features. Things Paul doesn't use. But $45 plans don't exist anymore. So Paul pays $85. Not because he chose to upgrade, because the old option disappeared, and $85 became the new baseline. This keeps happening. Streaming services used to be $8, then $10, then $13, now $15. Paul didn't decide to pay more. The price just went up, and Paul kept paying. Because what else is he supposed to do? Cancel? Lose access? Miss the shows everyone's talking about? So Paul pays, and the price becomes normal. Paul's car insurance was $120 a month, then $140, then $165, now $180. Same car, same driver, same coverage. The price just climbed every year, quietly, automatically. And Paul kept paying because shopping around is exhausting, and the quotes he gets aren't better. Everyone raised their prices, so $180 became normal. Expensive normal, but normal nonetheless. Paul's baseline keeps shifting, upward, always upward, and his brain adjusts, accepts the new numbers, stops fighting them, until one day Paul realizes his baseline expenses are $600 higher than they were 5 years ago. Not because he upgraded his life, because normal got more expensive. And Paul had no choice but to keep up. Paul makes $70,000 now. 5 years ago, he made $61,000. That's a $9,000 increase, 15% more. Real growth. Paul should feel the difference, but he doesn't, because 5 years ago, Paul's rent was $1,200. Now it's $1,800. That's $600 more a month. $7,200 a year. Paul's raise was $9,000. His rent increase alone ate $7,200 of it. He's left with $1,800. Before groceries went up, before insurance went up, before gas went up, before utilities went up, before everything else. By the time Paul accounts for all the increases, his $9,000 raise is gone. Completely absorbed. Paul is making more and keeping the same or less. That's why the paycheck feels smaller. Not because the number is smaller, because what it buys is smaller. Paul's purchasing power didn't grow. It stayed flat or shrank. While the number on his paycheck gave him the illusion of progress, 5 years ago, Paul could save $200 a month. Not easily, but consistently. Now Paul struggles to save $50, even though he makes $9,000 more a year. The math doesn't make sense until it does, and then it's just depressing. Paul sees the articles. Inflation cooling, wages keeping pace, economy strong. The numbers look good. On paper, inflation dropped from 9% to 3%. That sounds like progress. And it is. Sort of. But Paul doesn't feel it, because prices didn't go back down. They just stopped going up as fast. Inflation cooling doesn't mean things got cheaper. It means they're getting expensive more slowly. Paul's groceries that went up 15% last year, still 15% higher. They didn't drop back. They just stopped climbing. For now. The news says wages are keeping up with inflation. And technically they are, on average. But Paul isn't average. Paul's wage went up 3%. Inflation was 3%. Perfect match, right? Except, Paul's personal inflation wasn't 3%. His rent went up 8%. His insurance went up 12%. His groceries went up more than the average. His gas, his utilities, his phone bill, all higher than the average. Paul's actual cost of living went up 6%, maybe 7%. His wage went up 3%. So Paul lost ground. But the headline says he didn't. The headline says the economy's fine. And Paul wonders if he's the problem, if everyone else is doing okay, if he's just bad at this. But he's not. He's just living in the gap between the average and the actual. And that gap is expensive. Paul didn't used to have subscriptions, not like this. 5 years ago, Paul had Netflix, $8, Spotify, $10, gym, $30, total $48 a month. Manageable, normal. Now Paul has Netflix, $16, Hulu, $15 Disney, plus $14 HBO, Max $16, Amazon Prime, $15, Spotify, $11, YouTube. Premium, $14, gym, $60 meal kit service, $40 cloud storage, $10 news subscription, $12, total $223 a month. Paul didn't decide to spend $175 more on subscriptions. It just happened, gradually, one sign-up at a time. Each one made sense in the moment. Each one was only $10 or only $15, but they stacked, and they auto-renew. So Paul doesn't see them until he looks at his bank statement and realizes he's spending $2,676 a year on things that auto-charge, some of which he barely uses. Paul keeps meaning to cancel them, but canceling requires effort. Logging in, finding the right menu, confirming he really wants to cancel, clicking through the "Are you sure" on screens. It's easier to just let them run, to tell himself he'll cancel next month. Next month never comes, so Paul keeps paying for convenience he's not using, for content he's not watching, for services that became invisible expenses, and his paycheck gets smaller. Not because the number dropped, because more of it disappears automatically, before Paul even sees it. Paul orders food, $18 for the meal, reasonable, then fees, service fee, $2.50, delivery fee, $4.99, small order fee, $2, regulatory response fee, 75 cents, taxes, $2.34, tip, $5, total $35.58. What Paul wanted cost $18. What Paul paid was double. The fees didn't used to be this high. They didn't used to exist at all. Paul used to pick up food himself, but now picking up costs gas and time and energy Paul doesn't have. So he pays for delivery, and delivery costs more than the food. This is everywhere now. Concert tickets used to cost face value. Now there's service fee, processing fee, facility fee, delivery fee, even for digital tickets. A $50 ticket costs $73. Paul wants to see the show, so he pays and feels robbed. Airlines used to include bags. Now checking a bag is $35 each way. Choosing a seat is $25. Priority boarding is $40. The ticket price looks reasonable, until Paul adds everything else. Then it's $200 more than the number he saw. Hotels used to include Wi-Fi. Now it's a resort fee, $35 a night, for amenities Paul doesn't use, but can't opt out of. Everywhere Paul looks, there's a new fee. A charge for something that used to be included. A price for something that used to be standard. Paul's money doesn't go as far. Not because things cost more, because everything costs more, plus fees, and the fees add up faster than the raises. Paul's rent is $1,800. It was $1,200 5 years ago. That's a 50% increase. Paul didn't get a 50% raise. Not even close. But Paul needs housing. That's not optional. He can't just decide not to pay rent. He can't negotiate it down. The landlord raises it. Paul pays, or moves. Paul looked at moving. Everything else is expensive too. Same area, same quality. $1,750 minimum. Cheaper options exist. Further out. Worse neighborhoods. Smaller spaces. Paul could save $300 a month, but spend $200 more on gas and an extra hour commuting. Every day the math doesn't work, so Paul stays and pays $1,800 every month. That's $21,600 a year. 31% of Paul's gross income, 42% of his take-home, before anything else, before groceries, before car, before insurance, before utilities, before life, just housing. Financial advisors say housing should be 30% of gross income. Paul is over that, but there's no cheaper option that doesn't trade money for time or safety. So Paul pays what he pays and watches the number go up every year, while his paycheck grows slower. This is the anchor, the thing that keeps Paul stuck. Because housing is half his budget, and housing keeps getting more expensive. Faster than his raises, faster than inflation, faster than anything else. Paul can cut back on groceries. He can skip the coffee. He can cancel subscriptions. but he can't cut back on housing. Not without major life changes, changes that come with their own costs. So Paul stays trapped in an apartment that costs more every year, making a salary that doesn't keep up, watching the gap widen, slowly, inevitably. Until one day Paul realizes he's working harder, making more, and falling further behind. Paul's brain is wired wrong for this. Evolution didn't prepare him for inflation, for slow, grinding increases that compound over years. Paul's brain notices threats, sudden changes, immediate dangers. A 50% rent increase in 1 year would trigger panic. Action, change. But 8% a year for 6 years? Paul adjusts, accepts it, keeps paying, until he looks back and realizes rent doubled, and he never did anything about it, because each individual increase felt manageable, annoying but manageable. Paul's brain also anchors to the past, to what things used to cost. Every purchase is a comparison, to a world that doesn't exist anymore. And in that comparison, Paul always loses. This creates a constant low-grade stress, not panic, just pressure. Just pressure, a feeling that things aren't quite working, that Paul is doing something wrong, that he should have more left over, that other people must be handling this better, but they're not. Everyone making $70,000 is feeling the same thing. The raises that disappear, the expenses that compound, the gap between effort and outcome. Paul isn't failing. The system just changed, and nobody told him. Paul got a raise this year. He'll probably get one next year too. 3%, maybe 4% if he's lucky. It won't feel like progress. It'll feel like treading water, because that's what it is. Paul's expenses will go up too. Rent will increase. Insurance will increase. Groceries will cost more. Gas will fluctuate but trend higher. Subscriptions will raise prices. Fees will multiply. And Paul's 3% raise will disappear. Again, into a baseline that keeps rising. Paul can't control inflation. He can't control rent increases. He can't control corporate pricing strategies. He can't control shrinkflation. He can't make companies stop adding fees. All Paul can control is his response, his awareness, his choices, his structure. Paul can track where the money actually goes, not where he thinks it goes, where it actually goes. He can see the subscriptions he forgot about, the fees he accepted without questioning, the expenses that crept up while he wasn't looking. Paul can make different choices, not dramatic ones, just intentional ones. Cook more. Cancel what he doesn't use. Shop around for insurance. Move somewhere cheaper. Ask for a bigger raise. Find a better paying job. None of these are easy. None of them fix everything. But they're the only things Paul can actually control, because the prices aren't coming back down. The fees aren't disappearing. The baseline isn't resetting. This is the world now. Paul's paycheck will keep growing, slowly, and his expenses will keep growing, faster, and Paul will keep feeling like he's falling behind. Unless he changes something structural, something real, something more than just hoping next year's raise will finally be enough. It won't be. It never is. Paul makes more money than he did 5 years ago. He has less to show for it. That's not a paradox. That's just math. Painful, quiet math. The kind that doesn't make headlines, but shows up in every bank statement, every budget, every month. Paul's not imagining it. The paycheck really does feel smaller, because what it buys is smaller, and Paul is tired of pretending that's normal. Thanks for watching. We'll check back in on Paul next time. Another trap, another lesson. This is how money really works.